Good morning, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. It is Conference Championship Sunday. By the end of the day, we'll know which two teams are playing in the Super Bowl, which is always kind of interesting, even if your team isn't involved and even if you don't like any of the teams who are involved. So we'll see what's up there. Maybe I'll make a video about it later today, depending on what happens. But before we get to those games later today, those very interesting, compelling games, I want to start the conversation on the Seattle Seahawks outgoing free agents. This video is not going to be really laser focused on any one or two guys. I just want to survey the landscape of outgoing free agents this upcoming offseason and figure out basically what are we looking at in terms of trying to retain them. Do we want to retain them, first of all? And if we do, what is it going to cost? How high should we be willing to go? What should we expect them to get in the open market? That kind of stuff. We need to start having those conversations. As of right now, we don't have any money, but that's going to change very quickly. I made a couple videos over the last couple days breaking down the things the Seahawks could do to free up cap space. Obviously, it depends on what we actually do, but if they do what I would personally have them do, and I'll make another video about this down the line, if they do what I personally would do, then the Seattle Seahawks would be sitting on somewhere around 70 million in cap space. Obviously, they're not going to do exactly what I want them to do, but they're going to do a lot of it, and they're probably going to end up with, I'd say, at least 50 million in cap space going into the offseason. So there is going to be money to bring these guys back, but which ones are actually worth bringing back at the price they're probably going to cost? So this is Spotrac. This is their list of outgoing Seahawks free agents. It's 20 of them. And real quick, before I get too deep in the weeds here, Spotrac occasionally gets things wrong. For instance, they have Jake Curhan listed as an exclusive rights free agent. I don't think he is, because we released him mid-season last year and then brought him back. So I don't think we have exclusive rights on him. So that's one thing I believe they've gotten wrong here. And I don't think Michael Jackson is a restricted free agent anymore, because he was last year, to my recollection. Other than that, I think everything here is pretty bang on. So I'm willing to roll with it. And the big stuff is all definitely right. Like the big stuff, the stuff that really matters, we're good. So they may have gotten the status a little bit wrong on a couple of these low-level guys they did last year. I'm not too worried about that. So just understand that you might find contradictory information elsewhere, and that stuff might be correct. Okay, so looking at the list of players, there's a clear tier one in terms of price, right? Guys who are going to be the priciest. You've got Leonard Williams and you've got Jordan Brooks. Those guys are clearly going to demand a lot of money. At least, I think you're looking at 8 figures a year for both of them. I don't know exactly how high it could go, but Brooks, I think people are sleeping on how much money he could make. He's always been a tackle hound. He's always been somebody right at the top of the league in tackles. This most recent year, he was much better in coverage in terms of what he was giving up and allowing. He's shown promise as a blitzer, a pass rusher, and he's immensely talented. I mean, his speed at his size at linebacker is not something you run into every day. And I'm not a huge fan of Jordan Brooks, but I expect someone out there will be, and there's going to be a lot of money thrown at him. And Leonard Williams goes without saying. He played so well this year for us and has been such a good player throughout his career. I think he's probably looking at a contract in the similar realm as Brooks, maybe a little shorter because he's older, but he's going to be getting, I think, similar amounts of money. So both those guys are definitely tier one, big-time starter money type contracts if you want to keep them, and they can definitely find those contracts elsewhere if they move on. So that's tier one. Tier two would be, I would say, Noah Fant. I know he didn't do that much last year. I know his production's been down, and he's never been super productive. But I think most teams are going to look at that and go, look, he's still really talented. He still has tremendous speed. He's a great athlete. Got great hands, by the way. He didn't drop hardly anything the last 2 years. And if we actually put him in an offense that features him and doesn't rotate 3 tight ends in and out and then not use tight ends that often, then he's going to put up big numbers and he's going to be a great player. So I think Noah Fant is going to be pushing up close to. I think he might get 8 figures from the right team. Evan Ingram basically got that, right? Like, I think he can get what Evan Ingram got. And then I would also say grouped in with him would be possibly Damian Lewis. And this one's tough because he didn't have a good year in 2023, but he's also arguably playing out of position. And when the 1 year we allowed him to play his natural position, he played very well as a rookie. And he also had a good year in 2022 at left guard, out of position. So I could see Damian Lewis pushing up to about 8 figures a year as well. Maybe not just because he's coming off a bad year, but I would not rule it out. And I think that one's going to be really tough to predict. But if you want to keep Damian Lewis, you are probably looking at, even with the bad year he had, at least $7 million per year. We'll talk more about that later. The next tier would probably be guys like Bobby Wagner, who, based off his play, could be tier 1 or tier 2. But given that he made the Pro Bowl with the Rams in 2022, 2022, and then agreed to a 1-year, $5.5 million deal with the Seahawks in 2023, tells me he's not really in it for the money anymore. He doesn't care about the money that much. He just wants to play in a place that he likes. So if you're bringing back Bobby Wagner, I think there's a good chance that you'd be able to get him for $5 million. Like, what did he do in 2023 that he didn't do in 2022? I don't think he's suddenly going to go, okay, I want, 10 million, I want 12 million a year or anything like that. So you're probably looking at somewhere around 5 to 5.5, maybe 6 million for Wagner if you want to bring him back. So I think he's somewhere around that level. I would say that in that group also would be Colby Parkinson. I feel like he's played fairly well the last 2 years. The production hasn't been huge, but he's been healthy. He's been you can see the potential there. Somebody's going to look at his size and his hands and go, I got to find a way to bring that guy in here, and I got to pay him money based off his potential rather than his actual production. And I think he could end up pushing up around 6 or 7 million per year on a deal if somebody decides to pay him like that, and we might have to match that in order to keep him around. So those are the main ones that we need to have like in-depth conversations about, I think. You do have some guys who are more like backup caliber, like Drew Lock. You're probably looking at, honestly, because he did play a little bit last year and you gave him 4 million last year, he might be looking for something in the 5 million a year range as well if you want him to come back. So he might be kind of in that tier 3 as well. But you've also got Phil Haynes, who did not have a very good year, and then he got hurt. So you're probably bringing him back on vet min, maybe vet min plus. Devin Bush didn't play that much and was mixed when he did play. So if you want to bring him back, you're probably looking at another similar, like $3 million a year deal. I don't think there would be a lot of enthusiasm behind bringing him back because there just wasn't much to say about Devin Bush with the way he played. You got Evan Brown, if you're going to bring him back for a center position, I don't think you would pay him any more than you just paid him because he didn't play well and he kept dealing with injuries all season long. I don't know why he'd suddenly get a long-term extension based off his play in Seattle in 2023. So that's probably like I'd say 2.5 million at most. Daryl Taylor's restricted, so you can bring him back for a couple $1,000,000, no problem, and there's no negotiating. So I do think a Daryl Taylor 1-year extension might happen just because it's going to be so cheap. Like I said, he's restricted. There's not even anything to talk about. Mario Edwards, if you bring him back, is probably going to be on a similar Vetmin deal. The 1.317 he got in 2023. Maybe it would be a tiny bit more than that, like 1.5 or so. But you're looking at something like that where it's not much to discuss. It's just, do you want him or do you not want him? DJ Dallas, I can't, with the year he just had where he also kind of melted down as a return man, I can't imagine him getting much more than the minimum, even though he does provide some value as a backup. He's versatile, but he didn't really do much in 2023 to earn any kind of a 2024 payday beyond maybe at most $2 million, but I don't even see that. Mike Jackson, we just kind of have a logjam at cornerback. If he's restricted, which I don't believe that he is, then it's at least interesting to talk about. But we just didn't show a lot of confidence in him in 2023. We did start playing him more near the end of the season, but results are mixed. Not very good in coverage, but he's a good tackler, I guess. But I can't imagine him getting more than a couple million because he just didn't play that much in 2023. And then you've got a collection of guys that are just kind of, there's not much to talk about. Either they're minimum players or you don't want them back. Jake Curhan, Miles Adams, Joshua Onugiogu, Brady Russell, Ty Okada, Patrick O'Connell. Those guys are like, there's no conversation there, really. It's either, okay, you can come back on a minimum deal, or we don't even think you're worth minimum. So this part's pretty easy. This part's pretty cheap. Most of this is going to be fairly cheap. And honestly, spoiler alert, a lot of these players are players I'm not that interested in bringing back. But there are definitely some guys here we have to make a difficult decision on. And there are going to be some guys that take up a significant chunk of whatever cap space we're able to free up for 2024. So this is the conversation we're going to start having over the next week plus. We've got a lot to go into here with these players, so everybody gear up for that. Yeah, that's what I got to say in this video. Have fun with the games later today. Go Hawks, and who's getting money, people? Who are we giving that money to?